Hey, 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 hockey fans. We are back for another episode of the Founding Four podcast. Woohoo! I am here with my co-host now, Angelica Rodriguez. This is the revamped Founding Four podcast, and we, the two of us, are two Latinas with spicy hockey takes, and the hits just keep coming. Angelica, we had a lot of news. There is a lot happening in the hockey world, in the MNHL, as well as the PHF, the PWHPA. I'm sure there's big things coming. We'll talk about that. But first, let's recap. So it's been this is the second week now since your debut in particular. So I want to get your thoughts. How was it, the maiden voyage on the Founding Four?
Well, I feel like I'm gonna need to calm down a little bit. I'll tell you that much. I feel like I'm gonna make these attitude. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I think it went well. I got a nice message from a friend of the podcast, Carey now of the Toronto Six, saying that we killed it. So, shout out to CJ, who also has her own podcast she's coming out with alongside Zoe Hicks, More Than 5%. I think that that's amazing. I'm so excited to see what they do. So check that out, once it hits the airwaves. But yeah, I just, I have fun. You already know, I can talk for ages, so I have fun. If I'm allowed to talk, you gotta come down, so.
I love it. Allowed. Never that. We make the space. We take the space. That's why the Black Rosie Media logo has Black Rosie holding the microphone. That's right. That's what we do here. So the Founding Four. Yes, excellent. The Black Women's Sports Hall of Fame pin. Those, listen, you are one of very few people to have those. But if you are a member of the Patreon posse, you should be later this week, early next week, getting a link so you can get not only first access to buying those pins, but a little special discount. But yes, more on that pin. But we swagified you up now that you're a co-host. You got a Black Rosie pin, so she's holding the microphone. That was created by a dope company, Black woman-owned company called Coloring Pins. Can't wait to share more details about that with everyone. But also, there was some other swag in there.
I'm pulling it up. So we got some stickers.
Let's go.
We've got the regular crest. We have holographic, which I'm gonna hold these because I am obsessed with the holographic. And then we again have some more, a little bit bigger, and then we also have, of course, Black Rosie herself. I am
Let's go.
super, super stoked. I've already promised a couple of people that they can have some, so I'm really excited to get those out, decorate my water bottles, decorate my laptop, decorate pretty much my entire apartment. We'll see.
All of the things. I love it. See, I've got mine right there. Skadoosh. I love it. And so the stickers as well, we're going to have a bundle package, and then you can also buy some of those individual. You can get those over at blackrosiemedia.com. So listen, we've got some money to make because we've got some spicy hot hockey takes to give, and we're so excited to grow this podcast. But let's start with the hockey headlines. Biggest headline maybe for this particular podcast, Quebec. We're getting the PHF, the Premier Hockey Federation, officially made it official that they are expanding to Montreal, and it's going to happen in season 8.
It is. Well, I mean, it was about time that they announced something. I think that a lot of people were kind of question mark about that whole situation, since we hadn't heard anything about it since the announcement back in January, prior to the All-Star game, that the PHF would not only be expanding, but the salary cap and providing full player benefits. So, not a whole lot since then. There's still not a whole lot, although we were told that there would be 2 teams joining in year 8. There is one that is confirmed, and yes, that is Montreal. Originally supposed to be, I believe, last season, but of course, with the Panini Press, we have not been able to get that taken care of. So year 8 is when it's going to happen, and I'm excited. I really am excited to see, what happens there. But I also feel like this is probably why you shouldn't promise more than you can provide. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think Commissioner Reagan Carey has been pretty open with that exact point since coming on board, and has spoken to the notion that Montreal has been on the docket for some time. And, whether it was a stall tactic or not, I think it's fair to say, like, hey, new commissioner, maybe I want to take a look at all these plans for myself before we officially announce things. Obviously, also when there's a change of leadership, perhaps there was also a change of leadership. I don't know this for sure. And it wasn't, I was on the call. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, 10 a.m. Eastern time. I was like, okay, I'm in Vegas, and that means it's 7 o'clock in the morning for me. So, like, everyone has to sacrifice. I mean, that's
yeah. It was. I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from. Because definitely am in the movie, but it was mid-shift for me. I have a day job. A lot of our PHF reporters and comrades have day jobs, and I was just annoyed that I couldn't be there. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. There's always going to be someone that's missing out, especially, I think, and it was alluded to on the call, had they waited even a day or so, or, there's actually other sports that happen in the world. So you're never going to get everyone. So, I mean, either way, it's one of those things. And I think it goes back to, on our last podcast, we were kind of talking about it. There's going to be some changes with just where the PHF is headed. And again, we kind of talked in passing about the PWHPA, but I think once they do start outlining their plans, we're going to have to expect, and really honestly, the leagues or organizations themselves should expect things to be different. Now, when that comes to transparency and at least making things accessible, what I will say about accessibility is, like, I don't even halfway speak English, so it's questionable whether I can accurately speak English. But jokes aside, there were some media members who asked questions in French, and what didn't happen is that those questions then weren't kind of translated into English, and then vice versa for that matter. So I just wonder what that's going to look like moving forward when it comes to accessibility. And we've talked about individually and independently of this podcast, and certainly off the record, so to speak, and more casually with each other, that accessibility looks, sounds, feels a lot of different ways. So I'm very curious to see what that's going to be like moving forward. But I think overall it's good that it's finally announced. I asked questions regarding, are there going to be any special accommodations that are made for players who might need to relocate? It sounded like that is something that, generally speaking, the PHF is amenable to when it comes to all of their players. But the answer that I got was very much so. So Kevin Raphaël, the president of the to-be-named PHF franchise, and Commissioner Carey, as I mentioned, were on the call with us. And, it seemed like they were expecting for a lot of the talent to be local. Another question, though, that I had is because the plan is for that team to kind of be a little bit of a barnstorming team, in that they will have a home center for practice, but they will play their games throughout the province and throughout the area. So I think that's really interesting, that the the take was that that's to build community relations. I think there's value. Obviously, the PWHPA is doing that model. We've also seen teams like the Riveters play other places, so it's not completely unusual. I do wonder, though, if the timing of everything being finalized has something to do with that. It wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility, but also it could just be that they wanted to do something different, so I guess we'll kind of see. So I think, I don't know. That could go one way or another. I don't know how big Quebec is, so I don't know what the reach is. Like, if you were to do something and be like, we're the team of New York and we're going to travel all through New York, I mean, that could be multiple hours of travel. So I don't really know.
Quebec is pretty decent. I think that it's probably longer than it is, or like taller than it is wide. So we'll see. I just think it's funny. I didn't mean to laugh like at your statement, but I feel like if there's anything that I know about the PHF, that they operate under low-level chaos constantly. So I would think that this has more to do with planning and less to do with the desire. But that's just me. I I think that just having been involved, Stephen Chen jumped in with like. I a lot of it. It's just kind of going with it and happens. But either way, it should be interesting. And it makes me slightly concerned for how the players are going to be able to travel constantly and take time off of work, because players are still working second jobs and day jobs, just like a lot of the media are. So I do worry a little bit about that, but I'm hoping the logistics are going to be figured out hopefully before puck drop in November, something.
Yeah, and I mean, that's another thing that we have to get the schedule out. We're expecting that. We still need broadcast details. As someone who is on the broadcast and has been for, where are we going into season 8? So 7 seasons. Whoa! Also, I did some quick math. Apparently, I am the longest tenured broadcaster, which I think is like the wildest thing, but also like, let's go. Let's go. So I'm at roughly, give or take, 75 games. So I don't know if a hundo is possible, but we'll see. I mean, who's to say? Why not?
I have all the faith in my co-host that she's going to do with them. Guys.
Let's go. Yeah. Let's put it out there. Let's get a hundo. So we'll see. Manifest. I'm not wearing that shirt. I was wearing it earlier. Manifest, win, repeat. Let's go. But yes. So we'll see. Okay. So we definitely have more hockey news, but I want to let everyone know now, if you want to hear and or see the full press conference, then head over to our Patreon page. We're going to have that in full. And then over on our YouTube page, we'll have a condensed version, just a little snippets. That's all under, of course, Black Rosie Media, which, of course, the founding for is the flagship podcast of Black Rosie Media. We're excited for that. Okay, so we definitely have, there's still a few more questions than answers regarding Montreal, and we'll get there. But also some other news. Now, we call this Sisters Doing It For Themselves. That's such a 80s song, but some of y'all don't know nothing about that, but that's okay. Anyway, so we...
Copyright strike us.
Do not do that. We can't afford that. We can't afford it. No. We're broke. We're brokety broke. So that's why you got to go buy stuff and subscribe and tell all your friends and them about our spicy hot takes. But so development camp started. Free agency for the MNHL started today, which of course means that we have the on-ice coaches. And we're starting to see an uptick in more women being invited to participate. And one of those women is Jessica Campbell. She's so fancy that she got an invitation to go coach the development camp for the New York Rangers, and then the Seattle Kraken were like, nah. See, what we gonna do is she gonna come to our camp, but she gonna come to our camp as the assistant coach for our brand new AHL team, the Coachella Valley Firebirds. So Jessica Campbell, check out Locked on Kraken because I'll have an interview with her. But she was able to be one of a handful of women that are on the ice this week at MNHL development camps. And I think that's pretty dope. But also, I want to see more melanated coaches involved.
That part, because I feel like as much as it's been a long time coming for women of any skin color, I would very much like them to be a little more representation. I mean, we definitely have seen plenty of, not plenty, but we've seen a fair few players, a fair few coaches, a fair few assistants come through who are not white. And I feel like we could definitely be doing more to propel them. What I will say is I had no idea that the NHL had a coaching mentorship program. That was something that I didn't know, and that's what Jessica Campbell actually came up through. So I looked a little bit into that. It's a free program. It includes 2 webinars throughout the season. I have no idea when they're starting the one for next season, but, definitely worth looking into. I like the fact that it's free. I like the fact that it is accessible to, anybody who wants to see it. And apparently Jessica Campbell has connections to that. So, I think that that's huge. I think that that's a step in the right direction. But again, I mean, as with everything that involves any kind of marginalized group, there's a long way to go yet. But yeah, for former Calgary Inferno, Canadian women's team, Jessica Campbell, good for her. Can't wait to see what she does with her child.
Exactly. So obviously, as someone who hosts a Seattle Kraken-based podcast or Seattle Kraken-centric podcast that was very focused on Jessica Campbell, but you also have former, at the time, NWHL star Kelsey Colzer. She's going to be coaching at the Arizona Coyotes camp. You have the head coach of the Princeton women's ice hockey team. She will be going once again to the Philadelphia Flyers camp. You have Rebecca Johnston, who was at the Calgary Flames camp. Corey Chevery. I mean, yeah, exactly. And the other Johnny Hockey, though, no longer in Calgary. Last I saw, I think is it St. Louis? I don't know. Or no. Blue Jackets.
I was gonna say, yeah. That's kind of a shame, but it's
free agency craziness. Yeah, not my team. Speaking of your team, we got the Seattle Kraken got one of your boys. Is Mr. Steal Your Boy, the Seattle Kraken, doing it once again? Let's go. You don't have any feels about Burakovsky, Andre coming over?
my kookaburra. I'm thank you so much. I really am. But I mean, I think
Nazem.
I was gonna just say about Nazem Kadri, rumored as well. I really don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, I think it's to be expected that we're going to have a few of this cup team leaving us, unfortunately. I did see Bowen Byram's name trending shortly before jumping onto this podcast, and my heart leapt into my throat, but people were just talking about how he fits into the defensive core. So I was like, okay, nobody touches my baby Byram. Noted resident infant Bowen Byram can't go anywhere. He's got to stay.
Resident infant.
I was going to say that tap. No. Sorry, go ahead.
I love that there are more opportunities for women as you mentioned, through this diverse coaching internship program. It is something, it's not new. It's been around for a handful of years here, but we are starting to see more women, not just if there's two allowed, that only one every year enters Hockey Hall of Fame. Anyway, that's not on our rundown, so we're going to keep it moving. But, okay. I'm just saying. But okay, so if we did want to learn, they're getting ready for happy hour in here, so y'all bear with me. But I'm at a conference, that conference, #sports. Anyway, so but one thing that, as I continue to embark on my MNHL coverage, I have been looking at drafts. I mean, I cover the WNBA draft, there's an NWSL draft, and like every once in a while, women's hockey has a draft. And I don't know what that even looks like anymore, but it's changed. It's changed a lot. But this got me thinking: if we start to get, whether it's the leagues converging, or we have both leagues establishing their own systems, are there things that we can take from the MNHL draft? I don't think that we'll see it be 16, 15-year-olds being drafted, and then obviously there's no development program. So I think it will stick to what we see now, college or players that have finished their eligibility being drafted into the pros, much like we see in the WNBA or the NWSL, even though that's changing a little bit, but that's a conversation for another day. But what would you like to see if we were to go back to a draft? Should we do a virtual draft? Should it be an in-person draft? Like, what would you like to see from a WoHo draft in these streets?
I would love to I would love to see I'd love to see an in-person draft. I think that there's a lot that you can do with an in-person draft that you can do. I think that the way that drafts have been so publicized and broadcast in men's pro leagues, it kind of has set the precedent for what to expect from a professional league. So I think that when it comes to that, I think it just is one more step toward legitimacy as a concept. And I think there's opportunities for marketing. There's opportunities for, again, broadcasting. There's opportunities for these players to really kind of show who they are and, to find that story. I mean, I just keep thinking back to when I was much more of an MNHL fan and I've been to a couple drafts. My very first draft was in 2012 in Pittsburgh, and then I went to, I believe, the one in Jersey in Newark. So I've been to a couple, and just the fanfare and the opportunity to network, the opportunity to see people, to meet people, to kind of get a look at these kids, and even the broadcast, being able to learn more about who these players are and what they look to achieve is that's a really big opportunity, especially for women's hockey. I think that's a really big opportunity to carve, that kind of persona around the player. So.
If I learned how to unmute, that would be fun. How many years into video calls and you forget to unmute? Anyway, I agree with you, especially on the sponsorship. I, again, am here at a sporting conference, and there's just so many opportunities for sponsorship and to show the companies that are supporting, and to introduce fans and players, for that matter, and even teams to new companies. We know anecdotally, and also there are amazing places that like the Fluid Fan Project and stuff like that are doing data and collecting the data on the uptick and the rise of the return on investment in women's sports. And it's an untapped market, and you can get in early. And honestly, we've heard some of the investors on the PHF side start saying that. That's not necessarily the reason that they are saying that they're doing it, but it's a selling point. Let's keep it real. If you already are going to invest in something, why would you wait to pay top dollar? Why not get in when it's still a good deal and then be able to grow alongside it? So, I mean, that's just good business, That's that business 101 that angry egg-faced men on the internet are always telling me about. So anyway, but all the more reason that the planning ahead needs to happen. All the more reason that, and again, I'm willing to give a little bit of grace because of the changing of the guard that was expressed very evidently clear by Kevin in particular as part of the reason that he hopped on board. And so that, again, I don't know this for sure, and it wasn't asked. I didn't get to it. I had a few other points I wanted to iron out, but I just get the sense that this particular leadership group for this particular Montreal franchise is definitely associated and connected with the commissioner now, as opposed to perhaps what was in the works a commissioner or even two commissioners ago. But being able to be in a position in women's hockey where we are forecasting, thinking even what we see in the NCAA, right? We know where the Frozen Four is going to be. And unfortunately, I don't think the NCAA does a great job of getting together these businesses and marketing, but they don't do that in any sport. They focus on really football and basketball, and everything else trickles down. But again, a time for another podcast. But I want to see women's hockey, again, in whatever form or fashion, be forward-thinking and lock in these partnerships and sponsorships, and then use that to guide what the event looks like. I mean, I've been someone who has been able to do a virtual draft as far as a broadcaster and be part of that coverage, and we do what we can. We keep it lean, we keep it nimble. And I think there's nothing wrong with aspiring to grow beyond. We've started to see some of even the virtual and digital content be branded. And so then the next step is, don't just lock into the digital marketplace. Ask those, especially as we hopefully start to come on the back end of, as you said, the Panini times. Wouldn't it be great to lock in Dick's Sporting Goods or some of the other Athleta, lock in these sponsorships and let them know that the growth pattern is for them to host events? Well, TBD, of course, here on the Founding Four, we want all of the things always. But you heard it here first. Let's have an in-person draft and let all the sponsors come through and show what it really means to support women in hockey. Okay, now it's time for arguably our favorite segment, and it's For the Culture, happenings among melanated and culturally rich hockey homies. And since our last podcast, Mike Greer was named general manager of the San Jose Sharks. Now, he has played for the Sharks. He's had a career in the MNHL. Mike Greer seems like a standout guy, seems very well respected from alum in the San Jose community. So, of course, it's all about the stick taps. I love that there was a quote that he gave. This was about more than just, that the team gave. This was about more than just one single individual. It was about the opportunity for a thorough and unbiased analysis of everything in our organization and a chance to set a new path. Now, if you separate that, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's an opportunity. You forge a new path. That being said, there was a piece of me that was like, oh, why couldn't you just let this man have his moment? San Jose and the entire hockey community, despite what Gary Bettman believes and says publicly, is at a reckoning. Absolutely. We talked in passing about Nazem Kadri on this podcast. We talked in a little more depth about Nazem Kadri and our love for Nazem. And we, of course, mentioned Shireen Ahmed, and her wonderful article on why Nazem Kadri is so important. So I feel like it's extremely, at minimum, and maybe being gracious here, ignorant to say that hockey doesn't have a problem, that society has a problem. Sir. Let's not act like two things can be true at the same time. Like, sir, I'm gonna need you to not. And the reason that I'm bringing that up, and the reason, just to close this out, the reason that I'm even bringing that up is because we know that San Jose, they're not at the top of the table. This is a team that is very early stages of a rebuild, or even maybe at the back end of a few failed rebuilds. So there's that element of it. But then also everything that's going on with hockey, and just kind of hearing that press conference and press release, it was like, this is an opportunity for us to right the wrongs of our culture. It's like, what I don't want to see is San Jose put all of their DEI hopes and dreams on the shoulders of this black man. All of y'all need to do the work. Do not put it on my Greer alone. And so that's my only concern. Just like I'm reading, into the tea leaves, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but the auntie senses are coming out heightened when I read and hear some of that language.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that it's very concerning when you hear things like that, and you only ever hear them when it comes to, non-white hirings. It's always about the importance of it, and yes, it is important. It fucking sucks that it has to be important, but it's important. And it's important because hockey has just historically been extremely exclusive. And hockey has definitely had multiple issues with not just race but ethnicity as well. I mean, we see it anytime a European that isn't a Swede or a Finn comes through. We see it. I don't even want to start down the rabbit hole of all the bullshit that PK Subban has been through during his time in the NHL. I think that there is a very big statement to be made, but I also don't think that Mike Grier should be the only one to make it. I think that we talk a lot about, hockey being for everyone, and hockey, being at this kind of crossroads, but time and time again, I think we see that burden being put on the wrong people. The majority of people in this sport are white, and I think the majority of those people need to take on that work and really look at themselves and figure out why that is. It's not one move, one hiring, one signing, one win of a Stanley Cup does not a reckoning make. It does not make everything better, and it doesn't make racism go away. And I'm not about to sit here and let that kind of statement fly. Like, there's much, much more at stake than just, Mike Grier's hiring.
Yeah, and I mean, that also goes to, if this is, so now San Jose, and we talked about Chicago on our last episode, saying, wanting to separate themselves from the Kyle Beach unfortunate situation, and also not wanting to be transparent even with the next steps that they're taking to ensure that this doesn't happen again. It's the same thing when I was, I thought that it was such a dismissive response to be like, hey, like, a lot of stuff is happening in hockey. How is the NHL going to handle this? And for Gary Bettman to say, oh, no, that's not a hockey problem. That's a societal problem. And I know that I'm getting on Gary Bettman because why not? But also, he's not the only NHL executive that I've heard say this. This has been a talking point for years. And you would think that if every year you have to have a conversation about things that are happening in hockey, that, yes, also happen in society because, oh, I'm sorry, what do? When we enter the ice rink, all of a sudden we're in this bubble that doesn't exist anywhere on earth or on the entire, in the entire universe. That's not a real thing, sir. Act like you have an education.
Hockey is a microcosm of society. Hockey is a part of society. Society is made of people. People play sports. It is cyclical. It is something that is also concentrated because there are a smaller group of people participating in it. So all of the inequities and all of the issues with society are magnified in an arena where hockey is played or where any sport is played. And this kind of, again, goes into the whole idea that sports are not a political thing. It's like, if sports are not a political thing, I mean, talk to Colin Kaepernick, who has not freaking played on an NFL team since he took a knee. Talk to, John Carlos, who was raked over the coals for his, Black Power salute, which, still reverberates to this day. It's still such a cultural, phenomenon to this day. Talk to any Olympic city. Talk to any professional team that supposedly needs taxpayer dollars to build an arena that they supposedly need. If it's not political and it's not social and it's not this, and we talk so much about what sports aren't, what the fuck are sports then? If sports aren't political, if sports aren't social, then what the hell are they, and why do we fucking care so much?
Right. You can't have it both ways. It's like hockey is for everyone, but not people who actually pay attention to politics and who think that the overturning of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court is bad, and who dare to say Black Lives Matter and just not end racism because, let's be specific, right? You don't just, we have to be specific. We have to be aware, and you can't have it both ways. We're not slick. To your point, we are hockey-loving people, but if hockey is going to make me step into an arena and erase parts of my being who have literally been with me since before I exited the womb, you can keep it.
Yeah, it's so true. I don't stop being a human being just because I go into an arena. None of us stop being human beings just because we set foot in a sports stadium. And all of those things, as much as we want sports to be an escape, all of those things have not been that. For anybody who is of a marginalized group, sports have never been an escape. They have always been political. The personal has always been when it comes to any marginalized group. And not for nothing, that's not a bad thing. If you have a platform as a professional athlete and you can stand for something and you can make a difference with what it is that you're doing, do that. Otherwise, why have a platform? Why go into that field if you're not going to make the most of what you're doing? That's why me as a media member and as a fan and as somebody with a moderate Twitter following, I say this all the time because I don't stop being a woman. I don't stop being queer. I don't stop being Latina just because I'm a hockey fan.
That part, and I'm wearing my Megan Reyes special, and boom, protect children, not guns. Just so you know how we get down on this here podcast. We're always going to talk about those things, and not just communities that we identify with or that we benefit from. Because, another thing, and then we'll start wrapping up because the happy hour is about to pop off. I can tell it's getting loud. But another thing is that, we say, oh, the boys are just being boys, or, oh, that's just locker room talk. So it's not that sports don't understand and appreciate is quite the choice there. Air quotes, hard air quotes for those listening on audio. But, we are expected to appreciate, immaturity or to understand that people are going to be young and make mistakes, and also expect all of this humanity and dignity for people who make mistakes at the sake of someone else's humanity. And that's not cool. At the sake of someone else's safety. The NHL or the NHLPA, I still don't believe that they have made any type of comment about the death threats that one of their players actively received during the playoffs. How do you think that makes someone feel? And so that's why you can't just say end racism, every day in February and then don't actually do the things that could end racism or take the steps. I would think that if one of your players is getting death threats, a pretty good way to end racism, hashtag end racism, might be to make a statement saying we don't tolerate this. Might be as a team whose fan base is doing that, who holds Hockey is for Everyone nights, to maybe actually hold your fan base accountable and say, we love when you come out and hold us down, and we don't get down like this. So if you're going to be down with us, you need to keep that far away from what we do.
But they're more worried about the money than they are worried about the principle. And I think that ultimately the same people who say that sports aren't political or sports aren't social or sports aren't this or that or the other are the ones who made it political in the first fucking place. And that's all I gotta say.
That part, yep. So then stop giving to political campaigns. Anyway, that's our show. But seriously, that is our show. Mike Greer, we're always going to hold you down. We wish you success, brother. And listen, don't get it twisted. Holding people down and welcoming them and celebrating them is not excusing, anything that doesn't get done. Like, listen, fam, if you start losing games and like making some kind of crazy, we're going to talk about it. But that doesn't mean just because you are critical or you talk about things that aren't working doesn't mean that you're anti something. And that's another thing that we have to hold space for. Like, you can see the value in having more authentic representation, and hockey is hockey. Hockey is hockey. So I want to see that both ways, though, because when some of y'all foul up, when some of y'all pale faces foul up, y'all got to be told too. And what I don't want you to do is run and talk about, oh, I'm not a racist. Why are people more scared of being called a racist than actual racism? You know what I'm saying? So we're not here for it. We're going to talk about it here on the Founding Four podcast. But Angelica, final thoughts on this episode, our second official episode under Black Rosie Media of Founding Four Pod.
Don't be dicks. That's really it. Don't be a fucking dick. That's all I gotta say. And I'm excited to see what the
keeping our explicit rating all the way up.
I can't wait to see what the Montreal team.
I know. I think it's going to be great. So I got to learn a little bit of French. I got to learn about poutine. And then what is the maple festival where they literally just pour maple syrup on ice? All of the things.
Poutine's amazing. We're going to get you some good poutine. Don't worry about that.
I had some in Toronto. Does that count, or is it different in Quebec? I don't know. I don't know Canada things. I'm Canada ignorant. Well, I'm going to keep it real. We'll figure it out. And we might have to figure out if Founding Four Pod is going to make our way up to Toronto or up to Canada, not just for the PHF, but also, we talked about this last time in our For the Culture segment, we have Herb Carnegie going into the Hockey Hall. That's going to be dope. Dope on dope. So let's get it going.
Was also being held in Toronto in 2023, so
Ooh. Let's go. In-person events. We want to see all the sponsors, all of the things, and give us notice. Please give us notice so we can spend our coin appropriately. Thank you very much. All right, folks, that's the end of our show. I'm Erica Lindsay Ayala on behalf of Angelica Rodriguez, and we are two Latinas with spicy hockey takes. This has been another episode of the Founding Four podcast, part of Black Rosie Media. Be good to yourself and to each other. And I almost said hold fast, stay true. That's a locked on Kraken thing. But sure, do that as well. Hold fast, stay true to yourself, and we'll catch you next time on the Founding Four pod.